Sarah's a pretty tough cookie. She goes and taps on Harry's shoulder to point him to some people who are up on the balcony, and gives her the most unbelievable death stare you've ever seen in your life.
The people who worked closest to Meghan Markle don't work for her anymore. And some of them didn't just leave. Some of them left broken. That is not a headline. That is not a tabloid spin. That is the documented record of what happens when you get too close to the woman who tells the world she was silenced, mistreated, and forced to flee.
And the idea that Meghan has had the hardest 7 years of her life is incredibly offensive, as you say, to people who have been left genuinely traumatized by working for her. And the problem is,
the staff who served her, who answered her calls, managed her schedule, carried her agenda, they have a different story. And unlike Meghan, they aren't telling it from a Montecito mansion with a production deal and a Netflix camera pointed at their tears. They're telling it from a place of having actually survived something. Let that land for a second. Former staff driven to psychiatric care, that is the claim on the table today.
Survivors Club, so called, those people who have been into rehab, into psychiatric care, some of them as a result of the treatment by the fake Duchess.
Not a rumor, not a whisper from an anonymous courtier. A documented reality attached to the working life of the woman who sat on Oprah's couch and told the world the institution had failed her. The institution didn't fail anyone. The evidence suggests the person doing the failing had a different title entirely. Let's be precise about what we're talking about, because precision is exactly what Meghan and Harry have always tried to avoid. When the story is vague, they can call it lies. When the story is documented, they call it an attack. What they cannot do, what they have never successfully done, is make the people disappear.
In the Times newspaper expressed a lot of the anger that the Sussex Survivors Club are feeling about this.
The staff exists. Their experiences exist. Their records exist. And what those records show is a pattern so consistent, so repeatable across different people in different roles at different times, that coincidence stopped being a reasonable explanation a very long time ago. Psychiatric care, read that again. We are not talking about someone who left the job because it was stressful or because the hours were long. Royal service is demanding. Everyone who enters that world knows it. The people who serve the monarchy are professionals. They are trained. They are resilient by selection. And yet, in proximity to Meghan specifically, something happened to some of these people that went beyond professional difficulty and into genuine psychological harm. That is not what victims look like. That is what perpetrators leave behind. Now add to that the documented bullying complaint filed by her own communications secretary. Her own. The person whose job was to help Meghan's image. The person who was supposed to be on her side. The person who had every professional incentive to stay quiet, stay loyal, and stay employed. That person filed a formal complaint. Think about what it takes to do that. In royal service, you don't make waves. You don't escalate. You manage, you absorb, you endure.
It is a matter of record that she is a bullying boss.
Culture is one of discretion so complete that it borders on silence. For a member of Meghan's own inner communications team, someone working directly in her orbit on her behalf, to formally put something on record means the experience crossed a threshold that professional loyalty could no longer contain. This is not a disgruntled outsider. This is not a palace traditionalist who resented a newcomer. This is someone whose entire role was to protect and amplify Meghan's public standing. And even that person, even someone professionally invested in Meghan's success, reached a point where they felt they had no choice but to document what was being done to them. That complaint exists. It is on record. No amount of reframing on a Netflix special or a Spotify podcast changes what is written in that file. And consider what it means that the complaint came specifically from communications, not from a housekeeper, not from a driver. From the person responsible for managing Meghan's words, her messaging, her public-facing narrative, the person who understood better than almost anyone how carefully Meghan constructed the story she wanted the world to believe. That person, of all people, still felt compelled to go on record. That detail is not incidental. That detail tells you everything. And then there is the moment that required no paperwork at all, because cameras caught it. Australia. The royal tour of 2018. Meghan is newly married, freshly elevated, standing at the center of a moment that should have been, by every measure, the highlight of her royal story. The world watching, the couple radiant. The fairy tale at full volume. And in the middle of all of it, a camera caught something on Meghan's face that no PR team could edit out and no communications secretary could spin away. The death stare, directed at staff. Now, body language experts can debate and commentators can interpret. But here is what you cannot debate. The reaction of people who saw it. People who work in professional environments, who understand what it means when someone in power looks at someone beneath them in the hierarchy with that particular kind of contempt. You've seen that look in your own life. Maybe from a boss. Maybe from someone who believed they were untouchable.
At pretty much every turn, she's got exactly what she wanted. Why on earth isn't she celebrating?
You know exactly what that look communicates. It doesn't communicate warmth. It doesn't communicate the empathy that Meghan performs so fluently for cameras she has approved and lighting she has controlled. It communicates something else entirely. And the people on the receiving end of that look, the staff who stood in that moment, they knew it too. What makes that footage so damning is not just the expression itself. It is the context. This was supposed to be a triumphant tour. This was Meghan at the height of public goodwill, adored internationally, still wrapped in the glow of a royal wedding the world had watched with genuine warmth. If there was ever a moment to perform grace, to embody the compassion she claims as her defining characteristic, it was that one. And even then, even in that moment, what emerged when she thought the lens wasn't trained on her was something entirely different. The mask doesn't slip in crisis. It slips in comfort. And that is exactly what happened. Now here is where the argument becomes impossible to escape. Meghan has built her entire post-royal brand on a single foundational claim. I was the victim. The institution was cold. The family was cruel. The system was designed to break her. She cried, she suffered, she was silenced. Every interview, every documentary, every carefully orchestrated media moment has reinforced this one narrative. But victimhood requires a villain, and Meghan has always been very careful about who she assigns that role to. The palace, the firm, the British press, the faceless, nameless forces of tradition and racism and institutional indifference. She has pointed the finger in every direction except one, inward. And that is the tell. Because when you have staff filing formal complaints against you, when you have people leaving your employment in need of psychiatric care, when cameras catch you looking at your own team with open contempt, the question stops being who victimized Meghan Markle. The question becomes, who is the common denominator in all of this damage? There is only one answer. There has only ever been one answer. And it is the same person who has spent years telling you to look somewhere else. Let's talk about the mechanics of this pattern. Because what makes it so consistent and so recognizable to anyone who has worked in a toxic environment is the structure of it. It is never the powerful person's fault. It is always someone else's failure to understand, to adapt, to accommodate. The complaints are dismissed as jealousy or racism or institutional resistance to change. The people who leave are characterized as unable to meet the standard. The formal complaints are absorbed into an internal process that the public is told resolved everything appropriately. And all the while, the person at the center of it continues building a public persona as compassionate, progressive, and devoted to the well-being of others. They give speeches about mental health. They speak about the importance of being heard. They wear the language of vulnerability like a costume. Meghan Markle has done all of this, precisely this. The speeches about mental health while staff were driven to psychiatric care. The public declarations about compassion while a formal bullying complaint sat in a file. The camera-ready warmth while a death stare got caught in the footage no one was supposed to keep. This is not a coincidence of optics. This is a character. And characters this consistent don't change when the cameras are off. They just become more careful about which cameras are on. Harry's role in all of this deserves to be named directly because he doesn't get to stand at the side of this story as an innocent bystander. Harry watched. Harry knew his staff. Harry had relationships with the people who served them. And Harry, a man who has devoted the second act of his public life to claiming he was gaslit by his own family, either saw what was happening to the people around his wife and said nothing, or he didn't see it at all. Neither option reflects well on him. If he saw it and stayed silent, then his entire campaign of radical honesty and institutional accountability is the purest hypocrisy imaginable. If he genuinely didn't see it, then the man who claims to have identified generational trauma, systemic racism, and deep palace conspiracy somehow missed the behavioral pattern of the person he slept next to every night. Pick one. There is no third option that makes Harry look like anything other than complicit. He stood in front of the world and talked about the importance of mental health. He has spoken about the psychological damage caused by institutional neglect. And the entire time, former members of his own household were seeking psychiatric care after leaving his wife's employ. The audacity of that is almost architectural. It has to be built deliberately. You don't accidentally construct that level of contradiction. There is a conversation this audience has been having for years about patterns, about the gap between Meghan's public performance and the private reality reported by the people closest to her. And every time this conversation happened in public spaces, in comment sections, in YouTube videos exactly like this one, the defense was always the same. You're biased. You're racist. You're part of the institution that couldn't accept her. The complaints aren't real. The staff are lying. The system is protecting itself. But here is what the system does not do. The system does not drive its own communications secretaries to file formal complaints. The system does not send palace staff to psychiatric care. The system does not get caught on camera in Australia looking at human beings with that kind of contempt. Those things happened in proximity to one specific person, the same person every single time. And you were right. This audience, this community that has watched closely and refused to be gaslit, you were right about what you were seeing. The record is now there to prove it. The people who called this out early were dismissed as cynics, as haters, as people who simply couldn't accept a modern woman in the royal family. That framing was always the first line of defense. Discredit the observer so the observed escapes scrutiny. It worked for a while. It doesn't work anymore. Because you cannot discredit a formal complaint. You cannot dismiss a psychiatric record. You cannot unsee footage. The documentation has caught up to the narrative, and the narrative is losing. Meghan Markle will give another interview. She will sit in another carefully lit room, wearing another expertly chosen outfit, and she will describe her suffering with the precise cadence of someone who has rehearsed the emotion until it lands exactly right. She will be asked about the toll of it all. She will pause at the correct moment. She will speak about resilience. She will speak about healing. And somewhere in a room that is not on camera, there will be a former member of her staff who needed psychiatric care just to get their life back after working for her. That person doesn't have a production deal. That person doesn't have a platform. That person filed a complaint, or left quietly, or simply tried to recover, and then watched the woman responsible for their suffering continue to be held up as a symbol of everything noble and victimized and brave. That is the story. That is the documented, on-record, camera-caught story. Not of a woman who was failed by an institution, but of an institution, of staff, of professionals, of human beings who showed up to do their jobs, who were failed by her. The survivors of Meghan Markle's management style are not anonymous anymore. They are on record. The complaint is on record. The psychiatric harm is part of the documented history. The death stare is in the footage. Meghan keeps calling herself the victim. The people she managed have a different word for her. And after everything you have watched, everything you have seen, everything that has been documented and recorded and filed, you already know exactly what that word is. If you've been watching this story unfold and you knew from the beginning how it would end, you belong here. The Palace Leaks covers what the mainstream press is too polite to say plainly. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is far from over, and every new chapter proves the point.